Welcome back to the Deeply Rooted podcast. I'm Liz, and I'm here with my co-host Aaron, and we're on episode 4 of our "So There I Was" series. We're being on some awesome guests onto the podcast, and I'm super excited about today's episode. It's going to be with my best friend Lily Gable, who's my roommate at the academy. She just graduated flight school, and she's starting her first tour as a pilot. So I'm so excited to have her on. She's been a big encouragement to me in my faith. I got to see her become a Christian, and that her zeal for the Lord just like really encouraged me and brought me closer to God and encouraged me to share my faith with others because she taught me that someone's always watching how you're living and the way you act can be a big influence to those around you.
So my name's Lillian Gable, like Liz said, and we were roommates at the Coast Guard Academy. I'm 24 and I'm from Maryland, but my first air station is out in North Bend, Oregon. So that's where I'm currently at. And I had flight school over in Pensacola, Florida. So it's been a big shift. And I'm just excited to share my story and how Liz has just been encouragement and all the people in my life that have just pulled me closer to God. So I'm just glad to be here and thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, I'm super excited because although you and I were classmates, Lily, I mean, we're all at school together. Like you're one of the people that I admired from afar, but didn't get the chance to like know super well, especially when it comes to your testimony. And so the question that we've asked people on this podcast is the question, and it's super broad for a reason. It's just the question, what's your story? Because for me personally, just hearing and witnessing, like kind of sounds like you've done, witnessing people's lives and how God has worked amongst them have shown me a lot about his character, and it's taught me a lot about who God is. And so, Lily, what's your story?
So my story is, I feel like it's unique, and I've at first I kind of wish I grew up at a young age knowing the Lord, but I think it's been so beautiful that I got to experience him later in life and through other people. But I originally grew up in a Christian household. It was Catholics because my dad was Catholic, he was raised Catholic, so that was kind of where our household was raised. I would go to mass and I did confirmation and the Sunday school and everything like that, but I don't think I really understood what a relationship was with the Lord. It was more of religion where I could sit at mass and I could do everything and say everything I needed to, but I don't think I really understood what it meant to be in relationship with the Lord until I got to the academy, and I had the great honor of just being roommates with Liz and just seeing her read her Bible and her going to Friday night fellowship and OCF. And she just always had this joy about her, and she wasn't afraid to be herself in a place where I felt like we had to kind of be structured, but she was able to be herself and have so much joy that I was like, I want to be able to be myself and just be loved and accepted. And she's like, just seeing that in her life and why she had it made me ask her a question. I believe it was over Christmas of 2020, I believe. And I was just like, hey, like, I know you read your Bible and I just want to start going to like Bible study or something, or like, what Bible do you read? And that kind of just like sparked it. And she was like such an encouragement and like sharing it. And she got me my first Bible ever, which was like so sweet. And she kind of just like shepherded me in that and invited me to Friday night fellowship. And I was able to just like really sit with the Lord and start reading the word and understanding what it meant to be in relationship instead of religion. And during that time, I also just went through a trial with my own family where I think it happened for a reason. God kind of just pulling me alone, like kind of like how Jesus retreats to the wilderness by himself just to like sit with the Lord. And I feel like that's what he was doing with me. And Liz was just an encouragement and someone that came alongside me and helped me um just like be comfortable and not knowing what I didn't know, even though I grew up in a household that was Catholic. I don't know if that makes sense, but ever since then, like I've just been learning more about myself and more about him. And I've just wanted to know more. So I think it's just been pulling me deeper ever since. And I have Liz and Matt and Seth from the academy just to like thank God, like working through them and just allowing them to like welcome me where I'm at, even though I wasn't where they were. So sorry, that was kind of a lot, but it's been a lot and it's been a great journey.
It makes me so proud just to hear you like talk about Jesus and just see like all the progress you've made in your faith. Because I remember we were roommates first in 2019, yeah, and I started praying for you, like praying that you would like know God. So like when you asked me that question, like, oh, like I want to start reading my Bible. I just remember being like I remember that moment during Christmas break and just being like so excited and just like continuing to pray and just how God brought you into my life and you're like one of my best friends and I'm just so thankful that he brought you into my life at like such a integral time too, because I feel like that was also a pretty hard time for me to where like one of my good friends had moved away and I just gone through a breakup and like God brought you into my life to like encourage me in my faith. And so I'm like so thankful for you and so thankful for the friendship that we have. Um, so you became a Christian at the academy. I think was that your sophomore or junior year? Sophomore?
So
Junior, right?
yeah, junior year. It was like more my junior year yeah, because we were coming back. It was like COVID and
Yeah.
everything.
And you got baptized first December.
Yes, in
Okay.
Alaska.
So how was it? I wanted to talk about like how it was for you going from having like a strong community because we had a pretty strong community our senior at the academy. We had our Bible study we did together. We were like close with each other. How was it going from that to being in flight school and kind of having to rebuild that community there?
Um, I would say that it was a big transition, just like the transition I'm going through right now. But I think it helped that you guys helped me grow my foundation and my structure of like what it looks like and me like how to study the Bible and like seeking community. So when I got done the flight school, I did a lot of research on just different churches within the area. And I knew some other people that were down there. So that was kind of helpful that it was a place where other Coast Guardsmen have been and they were like seeking the Lord. So I had some people to reach out to. So that was good. But then it came to a point where I feel like I've shared this with like you guys in private, but I felt like growing my faith from the beginning, like where I'm at, I struggled because I would feel like I needed to seek people first to find the relationship with the Lord instead of just seeking the Lord at first. I don't know if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I kind of went through a period where I was struggling when I first got down there and thinking that I needed to look a certain way or I need to be close to certain people instead of seeking the Lord first. And He would bring the right community to me and make it apparent. So that was a little bit of a struggle. Like the first couple months, I was seeking people instead of really seeking the Lord in the areas that I was going to. And then towards the end, I was just struggling a lot with flight school with the pressure and everything. And the Lord sought me. So I didn't feel like I had to seek for a certain like place or looking a certain way. And then that just sprouted like probably the most fruitful like mentors that I've made so far in my walk with the Lord.
Last week, Liz and I, or one week, Liz and I were talking about how this is our first real PCS and how like people have talked about PCS seasons like before being super hard and everything. And I kind of downplayed it, but like I'm in Maryland now, which is where you're from, which is great. But I'm just struggling with that idea of like, okay, I want to find people because I'm struggling to find community right now too. And I want to find people. And there's part of it that's like a tangible step. Like, yes, I need to go find a church. Like that's an active thing that I can do. But I really appreciate what you're saying because it's a reminder to me that that has to go in tandem with seeking the Lord. They can't be separate. Um, and so, I mean, just I don't know that I even have a question follow up. It's just that, like, yeah, that's a good reminder to me.
Yeah, it's like sometimes it's discouraging, but then when I sit and I just reflect and be like, okay, I'm just like a simple step of obedience and just seeking like community within a church, I know He's gonna be fruitful and like He's gonna bring the right people in the right time. I think it's just like coming to a new place, you want to have that comfort so quickly and security, I guess. But I know that my security should just be found in like I still have the Lord with me. I don't need to have like the community right away. Like He completes me enough as it is. And I think that I've had to learn that being here in North Bend for only like 7 days. Like I cried the first day when I got here and I was like, wow, I'm moving to a new place. Like I'm single, I'm alone. Like I don't really know anyone. But I started to rest in the fact that like I know He's already come here and He's gonna put people in my life. And then literally like 3 days later, people started coming into my life that knew the Lord and it's been so beautiful and like encouragement of how good He is, even if I lose faith in who He is, like He's still going to fulfill His promises.
Yeah.
So,
Sometimes we're so impatient. Like I mean, even like you said, 7 days. Like that's not that long. And then I mean, I've been here like a little over a month now. But it's like, okay, come on, God, like where are you? Like, can you just like plop people in my lap, please? Like that would be great. But like you're saying, it's just like that steady obedience of turning to Him and taking the tangible steps of obedience to seek out community, but also trusting that the Lord will provide, and that it's not, you're not necessarily seeking community just for what it has to offer you. Like you're seeking community
mhm.
because God says to. God says it's good. And also just with the like eager heart to serve others too. I wanted to like kind of go back to your story a little bit because again, I wasn't necessarily there for like a lot of it. One thing you mentioned was just the religion versus relationship piece. And I kind of wanted you to expand a little bit on what you've learned about that and how God has taught you that lesson. Because I think it's those are both like kind of, I'll say, buzzwords in the Christian sphere now. Like, you know, you hear like, oh yeah, it's a relationship, not a religion. But like, can you explain like what that means to you and how like God has really taught you that?
Yeah, so I guess religion to me and what I identify it as, I guess, is just like the traditions and the practices depending on like whatever religion it is. And I think the Catholic religion is one that's very prominent and like a lot, I know a lot of Catholics, but I even know a lot of Catholics that they're in a relationship with the Lord. They're not always doing the religious practices of it. They're not so focused on that. So I just think back to like the Pharisees. Sometimes the religion where they're so focused on like what the rules are and the rules or regulations or keeping like the Sabbath whole, you know what I mean? And instead of it
Yeah.
being like, but I want to be in a relationship with the Lord. Like I want him to know everything about him. And I think he's just taught me like I can get that from the word and I don't need to be told by other people what that looks like. And it's been explained to me of like, let's say I want to be friends with you. I'm not going to keep going to Liz and listening to what Liz is saying about you or like what you've told Liz to communicate to me. I'm going to go to you. Like, I think I was so focused on resources. I think that's
Hmm.
another word instead of going to the source. Like, I want to go to God's word and I want to sit with the Lord and I want to have conversations with him, even if I'm rambling about random stuff. Like, I want to be able to have that relationship instead of me feeling like I have to go through other people because I don't think that's
Yeah.
genuine. I don't think that's why he created us. He created
Hmm.
us to have our own relationships with him and encourage each other to grow towards him through
Hmm.
that instead of it being so structured in a
Yeah.
certain way. I just don't want people to be discouraged to think if they've had church hurt or anything like that. Like I wasn't personally church hurt, but my sister was
Hmm.
in our household. So it's just interesting to see that like how that happens for different people, even if it's in the same household, but God is still good and he can still redeem anything. And it's in his perfect timing that it happens. So,
But I liked what you just said, Aaron, since that was the most recent thing that was said about how having comfort in the not knowing, like Christianity requires humility because in order for us to receive salvation, we need to have humble hearts. So I think it's important to acknowledge that we don't know everything. Like God is an all-knowing God, and I don't know every answer to every question ever, but that draws me more to seek him. Which goes back to what Lily was saying about like learning the word. Like I feel like I've been struggling recently too, just like reading the Bible and I'm just like reading it and I'm like I'm not
Hmm.
like getting anything from this. Like I'm just not like paying attention. It's also early and I'm tired. And so I've been trying to like really focus on what Lily was saying about like studying the word, and studying the word is what draws you closer to God. Like it's not even like I need to get something out of it. I don't think that's how we should be like looking at our quiet time, but just like getting time with God is like what that is. And I think that's like important to focus on. And then I'm just going on through the list. But then also, Lily, I liked when you were talking, you were explaining the difference between like a religion and a relationship with God, and just like made me think, going off of what you said, it's like trusting in our religious practices, like more than we're trusting in God for salvation. Like the gospel is what's most important. Like Jesus dying for us on the cross and us trusting in him to forgive our sins. Like that is like what is most important. And when you put traditions above that, you're kind of missing the whole gospel. So I liked that. And then I wanted to go back to, and ask this question about like how I think during PCS season it's such a hard time, but also like reminds me God's kind of like taking you away to everything so you can make him as your first love again and kind of like put him back on that throne. Like I know when Matt like gets deployed or is gone for a long period of time, I'm always like running back to the Lord because I'm like, I just like that feeling of like loneliness always draws me to the Lord. And I think like that's what PCS season does. Like it is a hard time, but I think it shows us the importance of a relationship with God and that you do need it because sometimes we can grow unaware when we're like surrounded by amazing people who are like people from the Lord, but sometimes we can forget to rely on the Lord Himself because we're relying on those people that He puts in our lives. And I know you made great friends in Pensacola that like were not in the Coast Guard or from the academy, and I know like Pensacola is such like a hub for like Coast Guard Academy people, and I know like it's such a thing where people are like, I just like want to meet some new people where I'm living and people that aren't like in the Coast Guard or that I know from school. So how did you do that in Pensacola? Because I feel like you had a good group of people that you met down there that you didn't know prior. So I just wanted to see if you had any practical advice because I know that's something like I've talked to girls and they're struggling with that. So I just wanted to see how you did it because I'm also kind of struggling with it here because there's a lot of Coast Guard here, but I also want friends that are either civilians or, and there's a lot of Navy people here. So if you could give any insight into that.
Yeah, of course. Well, one, I loved Pensacola and the fact that it was comforting to have people that we knew, like coming from the academy, like that was comforting. But like you said, like it's always not, for me personally, I wanted to get different perspectives of life instead of just always being military. So the first thing I really did, and I'm sure you guys already know, I went to a coffee shop called Makers in Pensacola, Florida, and I walked in and I would just go study there because I didn't personally like studying in my house because I would just want a different perspective. And I just remember this one barista, her name's Heather, and we're still friends today. And she had curly hair, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, you have curly hair! Like I love that." And so I just kind of just put myself out there of just going there daily and just having a conversation with her. And actually, the owners there were Christ followers, and they told me about their church. So then I started going to their church. So it was honestly just like putting myself in different places, even if it was just like a coffee shop. I would just like, you start seeing regulars, and it's like, oh, like I see you all the time. What's your name? Or I know some people go to the gym. So the coffee shop was kind of like my safe place out of my house where I could just sit and try to meet people, or they had like festivals and stuff. And I know it's uncomfortable at first because you're like, no one. But I think it gave me an opportunity to like get coffee, but also see other people. And then the other way I was able to meet other people was honestly through flying. It was one Sunday and there was an instructor and we were supposed to fly at 9 o'clock. And I was like, oh darn, like I'm not gonna make church. Like I was like, maybe we just get it done really quick and then I can watch online. And he was actually like, we need to move it back into the afternoon. So then I got frustrated because I was like, well, now I can't even go to church. I can't watch it online. I have to get there early to study. And I just started getting mad. And then when I came to meet him, he was like, sorry, I'm so late. I'm actually a pastor. And then my whole perspective just like changed, my whole like mood. I was like, wow, someone in the military who knows the Lord, who seeks the Lord, who's serving the Lord, and that's why he was late. And that actually led me to him sharing his testimony. And then he led me to the young adults group that I was going to for like the last 8 months that I was there. And then there was other people there that were just either they'd been living there the whole life or they just moved there. So I guess it was a little bit of just the work environment that I was in, but also just like coffee shops was where I met people, and that's kind of what happened for me.
And God, it seems like God like really brought your community to you down there. Is that something you prayed for? Like for a community? Because it just seems like he placed those people like in your life. Like it just kind of happened.
I did for sure when I first got down there, and I thought I'd found them through this one church. But then I realized it was a lot of like us young adults kind of just leading each other, and it kind of just like flew up a little bit, not in the best way possible. And I think I realized like I thought I had to know them for me to have a connection with the Lord when it's just through Jesus. So then after that, I was like, Lord, I have nothing now. I don't go to this church. I want another church. Like I want community. And he just does what he does best, and he provided, and it's just challenged me and grown me so much. So it's been
I feel
sweet.
I feel kind of embarrassed that I need to be taught how to like find friends because that seems like, like a kindergarten skill. Like,
Oh yeah.
oh, so
So
like
hard.
I have this like neighbor down the street and she has a 2-year-old and she's also a young mom and like every day I get home I'm like I need to go talk to her. But I just literally get so nervous and part of it is just like because I've been praying and I'm like, okay, God, like it, literally, Aaron, God has like given you a neighbor like you see every day. Like God has done his part. Like now it's time for you to like step out of your comfort zone a little bit, trust him, and stop making it not that it's not a big deal, but stop overcomplicating it. I think that sometimes I especially like will like make things super like a big deal in my head when yeah, it's a big deal to like meet someone new, but like there's to take the pressure off yourself and just like go and that's where I had to change my mindset of like seeking to serve rather than like seeking to find the perfect friend. Like I just want to go and get to know another person, whether she's a Christian or not, I'm not sure. But like when it comes to just like starting, like I just need to be obedient. Like God has like, she's out on the yard playing with her 2-year-old all the time. Just walk over and start a conversation. Say hello, like simplify it a little bit.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like Jesus shows so much in the Bible, like where he meets people is around a table. And so
Mhm.
like so what I was challenged with is just like even inviting someone like you could go across and be like, hey, like I see you out here, we should go get coffee sometime. Or even just like being that bold, but it's not bold and like you being scared, is bold in the obedience in the Lord that
Mhm.
he's gonna allow that to be fulfilled, you know? And so I just encourage you. I think that'd be so awesome. Like hopefully you do. And I'm sure she's so nice, but it's like I think we're scared, but it's also like, what if they're also scared? You know what I mean? And we just have to meet them where they're at and be
Yeah.
obedient with it.
So, Lily, we know you just finished flight school, which is like so exciting. I'm so proud of you. She's a pilot. I just wanted to talk a little bit
Crazy.
about, I know, a little bit about like the struggles you faced in flight school and like how you leaned on God for them. Because I know talking to you during that time, like it seemed super stressful and I couldn't do it. So I just want to hear how that went for you and like how you leaned on God during it and how he like grew you during your time in flight school.
Okay. I can remember distinctly in November of last year, so 2023, I was near the end of primary, which is like the middle phase of flight school where we're flying the T6. So it's instruments, so it's like high intensity kind of, it's like a lot of radios and a lot of sims. And I was just struggling and I was stressed. I um had just met this group that I was talking about, the young adults, so I didn't really have that many close friends and there was just a lot going on. And I just remember opening up and just leaning in Psalm 23. And it's the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures and the whole thing. And I just remember I would just say that before I did any sim, like any flight, like going into work. Cause I was like, at the end of the day, if I'm meant to finish flight school, like he's the shepherd of my life. Like I'm not the shepherd. And I think I was trying to control flight school so much of like you get so much pressure from an instructor and it's very like subjective of like you need to mold to fit a certain what the IP the instructor wants to get certain grades. And I think I was stressing myself out so much that I was like, why am I trying to mold to a person? You know, then I think of Galatians 1:10, am I trying to win the approval of man or of God? And I just had to recenter myself in that aspect of it's like, I'm gonna put my best foot forward, but if I'm not getting the approval of the instructor, that's okay. As long as I'm striving towards the Lord, that's all that I cared about. So that was a really struggling process at the end of primary. And I was just so thankful for the Lord that He gave me Psalm 23 to really lean back on and just meditate through the rest of flight school. And ever since then, like I would say that before I got in the helicopter, just finishing
Mm.
out like advanced. So that's when I went down to fly the helicopters for the last 5 months. Um, so it's really just finding like a Bible verse and I would just stick with that and just cling on to that, like no matter what, even if I wasn't able to sit in the word every morning or listen to a sermon on the way to work, like I would always go back to Psalm 23 and just have that constant reminder. Because in the realm of military life, you can get very like higher ups. I didn't want to, you have to like mold a certain way, and I just didn't want to do that. And it stressed me out so much. But the Lord was good, and just that constant reminder in Psalm 23 for me.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really good reminder just to have it written on your heart. Like that's what it means. It's just to meditate on it so that it flows out of you in those stressful situations. I remember there when I was on the cutter, like there were nights on the bridge when it's just like pitch black and you just can't see anything. And like I was confident in my skills to drive a boat, yeah, but like it's like that's like pretty high stakes. If something like comes out in front of us, like and I can't see it, like it's kind of terrifying. And like I got over it, but when I think about flying a helicopter, like I think of that like that being a scary thing. Have you ever faced like fear in the sense? I know there's a lot of like pressure from instructors as far as like, doing a good job and everything, but have you ever faced like just, tangible fear when it comes to flying?
100%. I would be lying if I was like, it's so easy, it's fine, like there's nothing to stress about. Definitely in the plane, just like we do spins and we do loops and stuff. So at first, like it's the unknown. I think it's the unknown of like these new things, but just trusting that like God had given me the skills to get to that point, and every single day He still allowed me to get to the point. But even like flying the helicopter at first and learning how to hover was terrifying. I just remember we had to do these like little box drills, and I would end up in the grass, or I'm like going backwards when I should be going forward. But I think there's something to be said about the instructor who didn't even know the Lord, but I think the Lord still uses people who don't even give their life to the Lord. And my my on wing is what he's called. You fly with him for a couple of flights. He like encouraged me and just instilled confidence. And I think that was the Lord instilling confidence in myself. And I think that's what's so beautiful about the Lord is He uses anyone to even communicate and like to give you peace. And so that really helped me in those fearful moments of flying around. But it was encouraging for sure.
I've definitely had instances where I needed to humble myself and realize that God is using people who aren't Christians. Like I think I thought I needed to find this like I thought I was waiting for this deep revelation from God, like through myself or another Christian or through the Bible. But like God is like put it right in front of my face. I'm just missing it because I'm, ignorant and humble and or not humble enough to realize that like He's working through other people.
Yeah, that's been encouraging for me. Another one of my friends, like it's a full circle moment of like me seeing Liz in her
Mhm.
Bible. And then it's like so encouraging to see like our obedience and then like other people asking. And they're like, why do you have so much joy in the chaos? And it's like
Mm.
because of the Lord and the word, but it's because how they see us walking out. So it's like, I guess people just seeing how you walk it out.
I'm sure everyone's like pretty stressed out in flight school and like people are probably scared a lot. And I feel like when you can have peace in those situations, like people can look on you and be like, oh, what's different? Like, why aren't you anxious about this? Or why don't you have fear about this? Like, I've been talking to Matt about this because he's going through some like really hard training right now. Like, he's jumping out of helicopters. It's like kind of crazy. And I'm like, are you like not scared? Like, and
Mm.
like people are failing out. Like, it's like a pretty rigorous process. And I'm like, do you like get anxious? And he's like, no, my identity is like not in this. Like,
Mm.
like if I fail out, then I'll just get another job. And just like having that perspective, I was like, asking him like, do people notice that like in your job? He's like, yeah, everyone's like pretty anxious, and people ask kind of like why I'm not, and just it's not my identity. Like a lot of people will make like their job their identity, but our identity is as a child of God, and I think when we focus on that, it kind of quiets the noise of all the anxious thoughts of the world.
Oh no, go ahead. That was just encouraging to hear that like what Matt's going through and all of that, and that he's not being anxious, and that other people, I think that's always like a big thing is like in the midst of chaos, people seem to be overwhelmed. Like I still get overwhelmed, but there's still just like a peace, and I'm glad that Matt's having that peace, and hopefully he can just shed and be a light to those other people, and more people come to know the Lord through him and what God's doing in his life there. because that's craziness.
I
That's
know.
what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm not jumping out of the thing. I'm just flying the thing.
Well, both of you guys, I'm like, I picked like the least stressful job because I hate driving boats. I could never fly a plane. I could also never, I mean, I can maybe do a skydiving, but I don't want to like fast rope out of a helicopter. So I just inspect boats because that's like the least
Well, and
stressful.
that's what's like crazy about, Satan and like the devil is that it doesn't necessarily matter what the thing is that instills fear, but just the idea of letting fear like drive your life is so not God's will. I mean, God wants us to trust in him and lean not on our own understanding and fear not because he is with you. Like, that is what God doesn't want us to do. He wants us to, amongst the crazy circumstances, he doesn't say he's going to take away those, but he's going to take away the fear amongst those. And so whether it's, driving boats, inspecting boats, or flying planes or jumping out of planes, like it doesn't matter. Like the temptation to be driven by fear is always going to be there. And that's the same now that I'm at sector. So at a land job, like my fear right now is, back to the fear of what people think of me and the fear of, am I involved enough? Like, okay, like, is it okay that I go home at this time to take care of my baby? Like, are people thinking like, and it's really just all rooted out of selfishness because like, I'm so worried about what people think of me that like, it's dictating like my fear and it's dictating like what I do and like, even things that go against what I know God has called me to, like coming home and being a mom to my child. Like, I don't know. We just have to stay away from fear by meditating on the word, by having it written on our hearts, but that's what flows out in those circumstances versus the fear.
Yeah, I think this has been like such a great conversation. Like, thank you so much for coming on, Lily. Like, it's just such a blessing to be able to have this conversation. And I know I was blessed by it. And I hope everyone listening is as well. Lily is like such a bright light. And I feel like she just exudes like her joy and love for the Lord. So just thankful that you're able to come on the podcast and for making time out of your busy schedule, like you just moved, to talk with us tonight. Like, we so appreciate that. And I appreciate this conversation. Before we close off, Lily, do you have anything else you want to share?
Not really. I just want to say thank you for having me. And it's been really great and like encouraging just to hear like you guys also in like your PCS season and like that you guys are like, we're all still trying to find community. And I think that's it's an okay thing. But the only thing I want to add is just like, I know I struggle with the enemy will try to tell the lie that we're not equipped enough to go out and to share and to make community. And I just want to encourage everybody to not be scared in the new season. Like, the Lord has gone before us in every single place that we're at, and he's still good and he's still out there, and there's community for everyone. So just continue to seek him and just rejoice always, pray continuously, and give thanks in all circumstances. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Lily. That's awesome. And it's been so cool to see how your story, which was originally woven with Liz's story, is now woven with mine and hopefully a lot of our listeners. Thanks, guys, for tuning in today, and we'll see you next time. With that, I'm Erin.
And I'm Liz.
And we pray you stay deeply rooted.